Hi everybody, and welcome back to the Stamperia Sunflower Art Mini Album Tutorial Series designed for Scrap and Create. If you are just joining me in the tutorial series, there is a complete supply list video showing you all the products that you will need to make this project. However, you can also click on the links in the description box below for all the products that are available on the Scrap and Create website. So check those links out, purchase those products, and follow along. In today's tutorial, we're going to begin building up the inside pages of the album. So normally I like to start at the beginning and build my album, but the way this album is designed, I'm actually going to start on the back and build up and then start closing these flaps so that I know how much room I have between all of them to add my features. So go ahead and open your album completely. We're going to start here on the back side. For the first piece, you'll need to cut cardstock to 8 1/4 by 8 inches. Now on the 8-inch side, we're going to score on the bottom of this piece at 1/2 inch. Next, I'm going to use my centering ruler and I am going to mark the center of the flap on the top. If you do not use a centering ruler, you will just need to mark this at 4 1/4 inches, or 4 1/8 of an inch. We're going to take our edge die and I'm going to show you how we're going to line up these larger cuts. So this is a 6-inch die. Obviously it will not fit across the whole thing, and if you just do this and put the next one, it's not going to line up. So I'm going to take a piece of washi tape and I'm going to show you how we're going to be cutting each of these pieces. So I'm going to take this edge here and we're going to make sure that the jagged edge, that's the top edge, is at the top of the paper. So these loops, we're going to line up with the top edge, but we're going to use this first little cutout piece to line up with our mark. So I am going to be placing this, so my top edges here are lined up, and then the center of this first little tiny curve is in the center of the mark I made. Then I'm just going to put my tape there. I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine, and then I'll come back and I'm going to show you how we'll cut the second part. Once I have the first part cut, I'm going to remove my piece. Now I'm going to use the other side, same thing. I'm going to line this up with the edge up here, but now I've got this indent here. You can also pull some of this off if you want to. Sometimes it'll make it a little bit easier to be able to see. And you can kind of feel when it slides into that groove that was already cut. Then I'm going to add my tape here and run this through my die cutting machine. Once I remove this, we're now left with a piece that looks like this. So mine was not perfectly lined up, and that's okay. It might be a little bit off, but you're not going to notice it. So there is the first piece with the longer edge. Now when we have the 6-inch edges and smaller, it'll be easier. It'll just be centered on the piece. I'm going to take this and use my scissors to miter the 1/2-inch tab section first. Then I'm going to fold back on my score line and burnish with my bone folder to create a nice, crisp, flat crease. This piece is going to be a large flap and I'm going to place it down here. I'm going to create a pocket out of this eventually. We're going to place the decorative paper on, then wood here, the sides closed. For now, all I need to do is add my adhesive to the back of this 1/2-inch tab section. Then I'm going to line the bottom edge up with the edge of the base, making sure that this will close and it doesn't get in the way of the crease. Making sure it is centered here and doesn't get in those folds either. Once I know that it's going to close properly, I will go ahead and adhere this down. If you have followed any of my tutorials previously, you will know that I like to leave myself notes so that I remember what to do. So I'm going to write pocket here because once I have the decorative paper there, I will close up this, adding my adhesive. But for now, we're just going to leave this. And then this will be a large photo spot if you have a 5x7 photo. So I'm just going to leave this like that. This is going to be the plainest part of the album because everything else is going to be built up. I'm not going to build up much here. Next, I'm going to cut two pieces that measure 4 3/4 by 6 inches. On the first piece, I'm going to score on the 4 3/4 inch side at 1/2 inch. On the left-hand side, on the second piece, I'm going to score at 1/2 inch on the right-hand side. I'm going to miter these corners. And then taking the piece that has the score line on the left-hand side, I'm going to use my centering ruler and I'm going to mark the center here. Next, I'm going to take my edge die and I am going to line up my die in the center. I'm going to take this to my die cutting machine next. Remove the die. And I'm going to use my fussy cutting scissors because the tip is a little finer. I am just going to snip right along that edge to get that off. So now we have a nice clean edge. Then I will fold over on that score line and burnish that fold. Then I will take the second piece and burnish this fold. For the first piece, we'll need to cut 4 1/4 by 9 inches. On the 9-inch side, we are going to score at 1/2 inch and then 8 1/2 inches. Then I will take my scissors and miter the ends on the 1/2 inch tabs. And then we're going to fold back on these score lines and burnish. With these pieces, if you want to add the decorative edge on this side too, you can. I'm not going to. These are going to be stacked up on top of here like this, and you're only going to see this one. So I'm going to leave it so that a full-size photo will fit. Now before we move on, I'm going to put this on here and I see that my piece is a little bit larger. Sometimes this will happen just based on where your paper is folded when you score it. So I'm going to take just a little tiny bit. We're talking a little tiny sliver. I don't know if you can really see, it's so small. Just a little tiny bit off of that end because I'm going to have this here and this has to fit underneath that one and fit on the page. So you want to make sure that everything's going to line up. I'll be using my centering ruler for this next step and I'm just going to set it right in that first crease. I'll take my belly band piece first and line this up where it needs to go. So I have this marked at 2 1/8. Excuse me. I'm going to do the same thing down here at the bottom edge, and I'm going to make a mark at 2 1/8 on either side. That way I know exactly where to place this on my flap. So I will take my adhesive and apply it on these 1/2 inch tabs. And then I'm going to line this up, making sure that it doesn't go past that fold, because then it'll fold into there and will not close correctly. So when you go to put your piece down, if it is hanging over, you want to take this back off and trim it down just a little bit. And I'm going to hold this flat as I burnish this down, because I want everything to lay flat and not pucker. I'll go ahead and add these flaps in. I'm going to add this one in first, bringing my centering ruler in again, but putting it on the side this time. And I'm going to mark this at 3 inches on each side. Then I'll add my adhesive to my flap. I'm using the flap with the decorative edge. Then I will line up the score line with the edge of the paper, and then the top and the bottom with the marks that I just made, and adhere that down. On the opposite side, we will mark again at 3 inches from center. Then add the adhesive to the 1/2 inch tab section on this second flap. And this time we're going to line this up with the right side and the top and bottom, but we need to make sure that it closes. So we're going to put it on, close this flap, and then make sure that the top and the bottom are perfectly straight, and then burnish this down. Then I'll open this back up and burnish it really well from the inside. So now I have my 2 flaps and my belly band. Next, we're going to cut a few inserts for the 2 pages that we just finished. So I've got one piece that measures 7 inches by 11 inches. On the 11-inch side, I'm going to cut this at 5 1/2. Now my scoring board, because of the fold in it, does not score right at 5 1/2. That's where it folds, so don't mind me as I score this. I'm going to score this actually on my board. I will move this to 11 1/2 and score it at 6. Then I'm just going to fold this in half to make a booklet. Then I'll use my bone folder just to crease that fold. I have another piece that measures 7 inches by 7 3/4. We're gonna leave it as is. And I have a piece that measures 7 inches by 1 3/4. And we're going to just take a piece of washi tape for now and adhere this to this piece, because we're going to make this a photo mat with a belly band later, but we need the decorative papers to be on there first. So I'm going to move my scoreboard out of the way. The card booklet is going to go under this belly band here. And then this large photo mat is going to go here in this pocket on the base of the page. So we've got these two features done. We're going to go ahead and close that flap up, and then we'll work on this part on the front side of the bottom flap. The first piece we need to cut is 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches. On the 8.5 inch side, we're going to score this at 1/2 inch on the top edge. I'm going to use my scissors to miter that top part and score this. Next, I'm cut one piece that measures 5.5 inches by 8 inches. We do not need to score this piece. I have a piece that measures 8.5 by 6 inches. On the 8.5 inch side, we're going to score this at 4.25. Then we'll take this and fold in half to make a booklet. And then I have a piece that I cut to 4.5 by 4.25. I've scored this at 1/2 inch on both sides. Then I turned it and scored it 1/2 inch on one of the sides. I mitered these corners, and on these corners here, I've cut through to remove that excess so that there's not as much paper when I fold this into a pocket. So we'll go ahead and fold on these score lines and burnish these folds. And now we'll go ahead and start assembling all these features. Starting with the 5.5 by 8.5 inch piece, this is going to go here. You want to set your piece on first at the top edge. Make sure it doesn't go past this bottom edge. If you've cut it too big, go ahead and trim it from the bottom. If your piece looks good, go ahead and add adhesive to this 1/2 inch tab section. And then I'm just going to come over here and place this, but if you want a measurement, it's about 1/4 inch from the edge. Going to make sure that it is lined up with that top edge and press it down, and then use my bone folder to burnish. I have this 5.5 by 8 inch piece. I'm going to lay this here at the fold and make sure that it fits on my piece. Mine is slightly larger than it should be. It hangs over the edge. So I'm just going to take this, and it doesn't matter which edge, I'm going to trim off just a little tiny bit. And then I'm going to try this again so that when it is closed, you cannot see that edge. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my adhesive top, the left side, and the bottom so that there's a pocket here, but the rest is open. So on my piece, on the back side, I'm going to have adhesive across the top, across this right hand side on the back, and then across the bottom. Then when I turn this over, I'm going to place this on my flap, lining everything up, closing it, making sure it closes properly. And then I will burnish this down. Cannot find my bone folder right now, so I'm just going to use my fingers for the moment to make sure that this is nice and adhered. Now that that piece is on, this makes a pocket here. If you like to have the opening where you can see, you can take a circle punch and notch this if you want to. I'm going to leave that plain. This card is going to go into this pocket here like this, but we're going to use the decorative edge over here. So just like previously, we're going to mark in the center of our card first. And then we will take our edge die piece and line up the center and line up the top of the metal piece with the top of the card. And now I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine to create that decorative edge. Just like the previous one, I need to take my scissors and just snip away at those ends. So I have my card that I will go ahead and slip right inside there. I'm going to open this and I have my pocket. I'm going to close this back just for placement because there's a couple of ways you can place this. You can place it up here, you can place it down lower, you can place it here, but we want it to be sticking out. I'm going to actually place mine right above this score line here. And I'm thinking about whether I want to add this afterwards, if I want to cover this with a piece of paper and then do this, or if I want to put two separate papers on when I do this. And I'm thinking that I might actually want to cover this fully before I put this on. So I'm going to just, for now, adhere this with a piece of washi tape so that it doesn't go anywhere while I'm building the rest of the album. And then we'll place one of the cut aparts or tags or something in that pocket later, so we'll come back to that. Okay, so these are all of the features on the base of the page. The bottom page, everything is complete for now. In the next tutorial video, we will go on to the top of the page and do that part, but for now, we will finish here. If you are just joining me for the tutorial series, don't forget to check out the links in the description box below where you can pick up all of the sunflower art papers from the Scrap and Create website. See you in the next video.